Okay, so today we're going to talk about, the topic we're going to talk about today is work. Specifically working in Japan, like our experiences, difficulties, maybe advice and things like that. So, mostly I'm going to be talking with you, asking you about your experiences.
I have many experiences.
We both have many experiences, but I think his experiences have been way more
diverse.
I know, I was going to say colorful than mine, but yeah, maybe you could say diverse also. So let's start maybe as far back to the beginning as possible. So we both were working while we were in university here. Right?
Yes, so I was working part-time at a Japanese juku, or aka cram school at that time. And I worked there for about a year and a half. So I think most people know what a cram school is. It's basically you tutor elementary school students to help them prepare for exams. So it's helping students prepare for an English exam, basically. It's very common for students to do this type of job when they're in university, because it's usually in the evenings and quite easy to do. And you were working in a English online company, right? Like you taught English online at that time.
It was an online MBA program.
Oh, okay.
For Go ahead.
Then after that, I quit that job. Then I ended up working in Japanese eikaiwa, or conversation school, my last year while I was at university. And that's just, typical, you had one man-to-man, one-on-one lessons, and each student had a specific, class they were taking. It could be listening or speaking and so on. So you just had to, follow whatever was in the instruction manual, and it was just kind of cookie cutter, nothing too difficult. You'd had some students who were, really fluent in English, and you also had students who didn't know any English, so just kind of basic, introductions, all the way up to help them to write their business report for their company or something like that. That's my first job in Japan that wasn't a full-time job, if you know what I'm saying. Yes.
So my experience, or rather my first jobs here, when I was in university, was I also worked at eikaiwa and did private lessons and worked for the MBA program aside from going to school. And I actually got the job at the eikaiwa through the MBA program. It was strange. The people who were hiring us, the first group that ended up working there, were not only hiring for that, but they were also looking for people to work for them. So they didn't hire everybody to work there and at the eikaiwa, but I was one of the people who did. And I did not enjoy the eikaiwa, so I only worked there for maybe, I want to say about 3 months. And then I just focused on doing private lessons and doing the MBA program. So, how about you?
Yeah, so I worked at the eikaiwa school, and then I quit my last term at university because I went to job hunting during that time. And basically, I just kind of was
You quit your last term? You mean at the job?
Yeah, so I didn't work for 6-7 months.
Okay, all right. I was like, you quit school?
Yeah, I quit.
You
I was still in school, but I quit the job and I just kind of chilled out for a while. One was I quit in January, and then in March was the big earthquake in up north. And I just kind of was chilling for a while because Japan was kind of on lockdown that time, so there wasn't really any people working, and it was just not a good time to be looking for a job. So upon graduating Temple, I remember when I was looking for jobs then, the actual rate of students getting a job was 30%. Where in Japan, usually it's 100% rate of getting a job in Japan upon graduating university. So a lot of my classmates had a hard time getting jobs as well. So a lot of them just took part-time work after that.
Yeah, I went back to the States for 2 to 3 months or whatever, because I was living out in Chiba at that time, and it was just by myself, and this was the first time something like that had happened, and my family was like, you need to come home, back to America. So I did, but when I came back to Japan, my job was still waiting for me, which was really good. So I just continued there until the English program ended in Japan, and they moved it to the Philippines. And I stayed with the company for a little while after that, but I was just really ready to go back to the States. So since then, I've gone back and forth between the States and Japan, but I'm currently working at a company that I've been at for it's been over 3 years now. So yeah. So how about you? You changed jobs. You changed jobs a few times.
Well, this is my 11th year working in Japan. It's almost been that's not 11, 9 years. I've had straight jobs. So my first job I got was in the summer of 2011, right after the earthquake. I was very lucky at that time because one of my friends, he was working at a eikaiwa, school for children, and he was looking for basically a teacher. So he actually recommended me to his boss, and I was hired. I worked there for about 3.5 years. It's been a long time. The only reason I quit that job was I just want to try something different. It was a good job, I did a lot. I worked in high schools. I taught like preschoolers, I taught high schoolers, I taught older women. I was like the all-around man. And then after that job, I applied to a publishing house. I worked there for about 4 years.
What were you doing there?
For that, originally I was hired there as a preschool teacher.
In a publishing house?
Mm-hmm. So the company actually opened a preschool using their publishing materials.
Oh, right.
And the education system was actually called Montessori. It's a Italian education. So it's you know what it is. It's kind of like you let the kids do what they want. You really don't boss them around.
I worked at a school that was next to Montessori school.
So it was nice. And then I was there for about a year teaching. And then we had an exodus happen because there's only 2 foreigners there at the time at the company, and everybody else was Japanese staff. And they all decided to quit because they had an argument with management. And so it was only the 2 foreigners that stayed behind because we were kind of like, okay, we'll stay. And then eventually we got popular, and since we were the only original members, they actually moved us up. And I was put in human resources, so I had to do a lot of the scheduling and budgeting for the school at that time.
Why did you leave there?
I left there because as a traditional Japanese corporation, there wasn't much advancement in my career if I would have stayed. I think that's the highest position I could have got. And they said, we can bring you to the main office, but it's all Japanese language-based materials.
So what is your opinion regarding the glass ceiling for foreigners in Japan?
I think it depends on your job as well as your company and the structure. I think if it's a company that's trying to globalize, which is the key word now, a lot of companies use globalization.
But they don't always.
They don't always. I think you could move up in the ladder if you are if you're like an engineer or if you work in business and it's an American company, it's a lot easier to move up in the ladder, of course. Right. But it's a very traditional corporation. You'll eventually reach the ceiling of you'll become a manager maybe in Japan unless you get sent back home to where you're originally from, and then you can probably move up in the ladder. But usually they don't have very many executive level positions in traditional Japanese corporations for foreigners. If they do, it's usually filled by a Korean or Chinese person. You don't really see many Westerners in those positions.
Okay.
Yes, and I was there for about 4 years.
And when you left there, was it because you just wanted to do something different, or was there any kind of conflict?
I liked the job. I just feel that me and my coworker, the original 2 members, we just felt our time had passed. We kind of felt like we're the original members of like a AKB48 or something like that. like we all see all these new girls come in and the new girls leave and like, well, you guys are still here. You guys haven't quit. And so we're just there and we're like, we should try to do something new. We're not getting a high pay because we weren't getting paid well, actually. It was a very low salary.
That's not surprising.
It was like,
especially, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. You take on all these extra responsibilities and they still want to pay you like you're
pennies.
Just working at a conversation school or something like that.
Yeah, and the job, we negotiated our salaries. So I was like, I'm doing all this extra work, and I still have to, watch the kids when the Japanese staff are gone. I have to, change diapers sometimes because the teachers might be busy. And there's a lot of work.
You gotta pay me way extra to change some
And
diapers.
you know, we weren't our branch wasn't doing well because you know it's in publishing. So basically, the whole nursery was just based on whatever money we got from clients. So they really couldn't offer raises or big bonuses. So when we negotiated our salaries, they let us work part time.
Okay.
So I was able to work part time and make good money. You know, tutoring. I also worked at like a travel guide company for a bit, which helped. Yeah, I was there for. I just wanted to leave because I was there for so long, and I just didn't see much growth in the company.
Okay. So there are some jobs, obviously, between then and now.
Yes.
But
should we go there? Don't go to the dark side.
No, we can't. We can't go over every job and everything.
Well, there's only two more jobs, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when you say two more jobs, do you mean the
one
job before that
and the one I work now?
Okay. Well, then you might as well go ahead.
Okay. So after quitting that job, I was offered a position at a well-known capsule hotel in Japan.
Chain.
Yes. Chain. Yes. And they were opening a new branch in Azabu, and they were looking for a foreigner to work there. Mm-hmm. And the point is that then they're like, well, it's Roppongi, we expect a lot of foreign clientele, and we need people who speak English, so we'll hire you, and you can be an assistant manager at this hotel.
So what was your overall experience like working there? As far as treatment and things like that?
I say when I was doing training, you know, Japan is a very special place to work when you're working in the industry. I hear you can do your service the way that it's done in your home country, but they really expect you to service customers the way that they service them here in Japan. Mm-hmm. So when I had American clients, for instance, I had to act Japanese. I had to have Japanese mannerisms. I couldn't, you know, be like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And like if I talk to a client like casually, I'll be reprimanded by the higher management. And there's a couple of times I got in trouble for that. They're kind of like, "Oh no, this is Japan. You're supposed to bow to your customer." I was like, "Yeah, but they're kind of American." You know?
Yeah, but we need to clarify. What do you mean by casually? I don't think you mean
not
like
casually.
putting your arm
just
on
like talking
hey,
to
what's
them.
up? You know,
sometimes we had like guests who came every weekend. You know, guests who like lived outside of Tokyo. And we'd just like sit and talk in the middle of the night. You know, they'll come up and talk to me when there's no. Of
when
course,
you're not otherwise
busy.
Engaged.
And you know, those times are like, no, you shouldn't do that because other guests might feel like or other people might feel
jealous,
or they might like, oh, you know, there's too much English spoken here. We don't like that. This is Japan. You should speak Japanese, like that kind of stuff. And once I got
why would they expect you to speak Japanese to a foreigner?
Yeah, I remember.
I
remember one day, my manager, when I was doing the training, she made me walk to an elevator and bow to I guess like a group of American tourists, and they're like, and they kind of looked at me and they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, it's like you're American, you're supposed to bow to us.
That's very embarrassing.
Yeah,
actually,
we did that.
It's embarrassing for them too.
It is like they kind of like, okay, like I don't
know
what to do.
Supposed to do that.
Yeah.
In response, if somebody did that to me, I'd just be like.
Yeah, and
since I've been in Japan, I would
used
be
to
like,
it. But if you're like coming from overseas and like then the thing I didn't like about the job was that it was really hard.
They didn't treat you.
No,
well.
I was treated horribly at that job. Like my coworker was something. I'm not gonna say a word.
Some of the
customers, like I had a lot. That's the first time I actually experienced in my face racism in Japan. I've had stuff in the past where people are like, oh, gaijin this, gaijin that.
It's not the first time actually, because remember you said that you worked at a previous job and the guy kept using a racial slur for Latinos.
Oh yeah, from a Japanese person.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and my other jobs I've had experience from other foreigners having racism, but actually at this job, I didn't do the shift making, but the girl who's ahead of the shift, I don't like her. She used to give me and the other foreign employees 18-hour shifts 5 days a week. So we'd work 18 hours, go home, rest for 5 or 8 hours, come back and work another 18-hour shift.
Yeah, and then you said that they used to just like sit in the back and just be talking and stuff.
Yeah, so like when all the managers...
they didn't want to serve foreign guests at all.
No, they didn't even want to deal with foreign guests, but they made me deal with Japanese and foreign guests, even if they were racist. Like we have a couple in our system. When a guest spends the night and they're a recurring customer, they're actually their names in the system, and it pops up like the warnings. Like people might write
some
like
notes.
This person steals, or this person. Be careful with this person. They might want to fight you or whatever. And in Japan though, which is really interesting, like when people go to a hotel, in America, you should ask for an ID, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Japan, you're not required to show an ID if you're a Japanese person. When you check in, you just have to show your reservation number and you're fine. So it's kind of like, well, the person is really a bad person. Like, they were committing crimes. They just put like a fake name down. Like, oh, I'm Tanaka Ken. I'm not this person.
Yeah, that's kind of treating it like a motel in the States, or at least I don't know if motels require ID nowadays. But like in movies where they say, oh, they signed under a fake name or something like that.
But yeah, like they don't require it. But they required IDs from foreigners, even foreigners who lived in Japan. They required their passports. Which is like, if you live in Japan, why would you have your passport? So remember we had this Korean girl come in one time, and she was like me, like a permanent resident of Japan, and they wouldn't let her check in unless she showed her passport. And she was like, isn't my like ID good enough? Like, oh no, you're JenJen, so you have to show your passport. And so I was like, that's the dumbest thing. Is like, I'm gonna carry my passport around. But in general, the hotel was a horrible.
What would you say was your worst experience, worst customer experience?
The worst customer experience I had was probably when I had a customer come in, and it was myself, a Korean lady, and a Chinese lady at the front desk. And she walked in, and she's like, I don't see any Japanese people here. She's like, I'm not going to check in until I have a Japanese person. She made this huge fit about it. She's kind of like, I don't trust Gaijin, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you're going to try to steal my money, say I didn't pay. And she made this huge deal about it. And I was like, well, she's like, can I speak to your manager? Like, well, I'm the manager on staff now. It's either you can wait 6 hours until the Japanese staff comes in, or you can check in with one of us. So it's up to you. Because there's a line of people behind you.
Sounds like she was just waiting for her opportunity. She's like, oh, I hate foreigners. Oh, now I'm going to get to flex how much I hate foreigners. Well, let me tell you about foreigners.
Yeah.
I think you're going to steal. What is that?
Yeah, and the thing that really...
Do people ever have any kind of self-awareness? Like, it would just make... If I ever did that, which I wouldn't, but like looking back at myself, I would want to throw up.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like, why did I do that? Like, why? Like,
Why?
if I have a disagreement with somebody, and it's not going to be my fault, it's just not, because I'm not a person that, I hate conflict, I hate drama. So, but even if I have a disagreement with somebody, I feel bad. Like if I,
Yeah, you feel bad about it afterwards. Like even if you didn't do anything bad per se.
They don't even have that.
No, they don't. And the thing too, I think that...
Like they want to hurt you.
Yeah, and the thing that I didn't like about the hotel either is it was in Roppongi, of course. So often there were crimes committed around the hotel. Like in front of our hotel, someone got shanked with a knife. And someone got hit by a car. And the police knew that the Japanese staff wouldn't let them view the cameras for their investigations because they needed warrants. But the police knew, as a foreigner, I just let them come and do what they want because I was like, I don't want to get in trouble with the police.
Trying to help you solve a crime,
yeah, so they knew when I was on like schedule. They're like, okay, he's here on this time. I'll go there and get the video footage when he's there. You know. So I had a good rep with the police, but also I think the big turning point there was the salary was good. I'll say that the salary was good there, but the big turning point
nowadays.
Yeah, but the big problem was when I had a customer who actually snuck. It was a capsule hotel, so women's floors and men's floors are separated, right? And he found a way to break into the women's floor. And like he did something. I don't know exactly what he did. I wasn't there at that time, but he did something to like one of the cleaning staff. He like attacked her. And my boss had to like deal with him and deal with like he kind of like he like tried to fight my boss, made this big old problem. Japanese people fight. They started getting angry, like, oh no, you have to know. And I was like, you're on the women's floor. You're the one that's the bad guy. And my boss is like, you have to do this if this happens again. I'm like, I'm not in the position. I'm not the kind of person to start fighting someone for a job. I don't want to. It's like this is not a position I want to be in. If this is what it's.
Y'all don't even treat me well.
So it's like you guys treat me as a piece of POS right now. So why should I put my well-being for this job? Why should I stay here? And then just a bunch of incidences happened after like the elevator breaking down when I was on staff. Remember I told you about that?
Well, we can't.
But anyways, a bunch of things. All types of different stories. But yeah, so there's a lot of problems that happened, and I don't think that as a Japanese person, it was a good position to be put in when you're the only one person on staff.
As a Japanese person?
Like, as a non-Japanese person.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So, you moved on from there because you just finally couldn't take it
anymore. That was only that 8 months compared to the 4 years and 4 years, so.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Yeah. I had a job where I actually liked the job. There were problems with it regarding, like, there was somebody who was there who was supposed to be a cook. She was a terrible cook. And also she'd leave, it was at a preschool, and she'd also leave like bones in the fish when the children were eating it, and she used to come and try and boss us, like, girl, if you don't get back in that kitchen,
do your job.
You ain't supposed to be up here. And anyway, but they were shady AF, like the owners and stuff like that, and it just got way worse after I left. But I liked working with my colleagues. Of course, I loved the children, and I'm very good with children, actually. But when you start messing my money up, and I'm noticing that you like doing business in a shady way, I have to go. So I had a job also where I don't know how long I was
like a year?
there. No, I wasn't there a year. It was some months.
Oh,
only
really?
A few months too, until I came to my current job.
Which you've been there 3 years.
Yeah, and in my current job, yeah. So, what about where you're currently working? I think you like the work.
Yes.
But the treatment is not good. Some of the things. It's not as bad as the previous
it's not
job.
toxic at all. I think my current job, I work for a Japanese trading house, which is a very traditional Japanese company, and we specialize in cosmetics. So there's a lot of science behind the job. The job it's a very old Japanese company, so they're recently starting to globalize, so they hired a lot of foreigners to come join the company because they want to expand overseas. But the thing that's bad is a lot of the employees have been there for like 20 or 30 years. So when they get people who've entered mid-career, for instance, they don't like when people bring their new ideas into the company.
Okay, and you said that the company is making an effort to globalize.
Yes.
But you said it's the people that are
Mid-management.
at the upper levels that want to globalize,
Yes.
but the people who are at mid-management
They don't want to.
level don't. So there is a lot of pushback towards anything foreign, really.
Yes.
Because they insist that the foreigners speak Japanese to each other in their presence and just do everything in a Japanese way. But that's not globalization.
No, it's not. And I think a lot of corporations are that fall in the same thing. Like they hire foreigners.
I know from experience also.
They end up quitting after a year because they're like, I'm a professional in my field, but you don't like the way I do my job, and now I get the results.
Right.
You know.
And there's a lot of unnecessary hand-holding and watching over the shoulder, and really, frankly, patriarchy involved. Not even just for foreigners working in Japanese
Just society in general.
Society in general, and they do it to Japanese people too. It's like, you are making my job unnecessarily complicated and also wasting my time.
Yeah.
Because I just want to get in, I just want to do the work and then go home. Please don't ask me, this is how I feel. Don't ask me to come and hang out with you after work. I don't want to get to know you like that. If I want to be your friend or make work friend with you, then it would have happened already. So we're not friends, and I've been working there for, a month. It's just not going to happen, and don't invite me to anything, because really I'm just up here to collect a check.
And and I think the thing too, especially working in Japanese companies, a lot of people work there for life. So they really, when you are a young person looking for a job in Japan, for instance, they're not looking for if you studied what exactly the job entitles you to do. It's more if you're a cultural match for the company, because they expect you to be there forever. And I think that's a big problem when it comes to hiring foreigners, because foreigners, as a foreigner myself, when I enter a job and say I want to be like an engineer, I want to go there because I want to do engineer work. I don't want to go there because I believe in your philosophy of how to live. So I think that's why the turnover rate's so high in Japan. And it's
globalization, let me tell you what the real tea is. Globalization, thus far, in Japan, for the most part, is having a foreigner, typically a Caucasian, to say, oh, they work for us.
Yeah. And it's, I think that they want foreigners to work at these companies, but I just feel that they don't know what to do with them yet.
Yeah, and, you can't get mad if I say I'm typically Caucasian, because we can go on and on with a bunch of stories, and everybody know what it is that lives here.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. And they don't have any sense of shame about it either.
Mm-mm.
Like, it's just, and in a way, while I don't agree with it, I get where it comes from, because they are the majority of majorities. Like, let's say 99%, or maybe 99+% of the same, same race and culture or whatever. Of course they're not going to understand why you shouldn't, why, if you have an aim towards, globalization, this is not the way to achieve it. And you should not say certain things such as, real quote here, it would be better if we had a white person.
Mm-hmm. And you had friends who told you that too, right? Who brought
all kinds of
friends who brought that up, like, people who are what they consider American. Like, the image of Americans are like what you see in Hollywood, in the old movies, mostly
usually
Caucasian,
white,
blonde,
blue eyes.
I always figure that very interesting. I always think it's very funny when people ask me, like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from America. Like, but you don't look like you're from America. I'm like, then what do I look like I'm from? Like, India. I'm like, I'm living in India. But okay.
I don't know. Like, to be fair, Indians think he looks like
Indian
he's Indian. Well, I don't think he looks like an Indian at all. I think he looked Latino. He looked Mexican.
But it's just, I think it's just societies, how society views certain people, stereotypes from different countries, and there's nothing you can change about that in Japan particularly.
And some foreigners lie that aren't from America.
Oh yeah, I get that.
They'll say, "Oh, I'm American."
Like where?
Then they'll be like, "I'm from New York."
It's like, where in New York? Like,
because they can't, because a lot of Japanese people can't tell the differences in the accents.
Yeah, so you get those people a lot.
So let's say, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can get into, and actually we didn't really spill too much tea, truth be told.
We didn't even get to that.
We're trying to keep this more concise.
We're like the coronavirus numbers in Japan before they canceled the Olympics, or postponed the Olympics. We're just getting on the surface levels. There's more to tell, more to see. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so what would you say is some advice, for, I wouldn't say necessarily advice, because it's not but your final thoughts you want to express based on your experiences and what you would like to tell people who are interested in coming to Japan. How about that?
I say that.
Work.
I think if you want to come to Japan and you want to just live here for a couple years and enjoy working and living in Japan, I think English teaching is a great opportunity to do that, because you don't have much stress and they expect you're not forced to be something you're not most of the time. If you come to Japan and you find a job at a Japanese corporation, there's a negative and a positive, of course. The positive being that they'll give you an opportunity to do something that you aren't qualified to do, or you never studied in university. So like myself, I never majored in business or chemistry, but my company has taught me chemistry, and they've also really shown me how to do business in Japan, which has been a great asset, these last 2 years. But remember that you're still a foreigner in the country, and it's really hard.
You'll never be allowed to forget it.
You'll always bring up something like, oh, you're a gaijin, blah, blah, blah. So if you come to Japan, it just depends on how you look at it. I think a lot of people who come here for 3 years and work at a corporation get the skill set, and then they move to like Singapore, or they move to like China, where they get a higher salary, and they don't have to worry about the cultural. Well, in China it's different, but like in Singapore, a lot of the people I know who worked in big Japanese, they've all moved to Singapore, and they have really good jobs, good salaries, and they don't have to worry about the cultural mess that you have to deal with at Japanese corporations.
I would say that it's not all negatives. This is a cliche, but it is what you make of it. It also depends on what you're looking for. It can sometimes even depend on luck or other things. There are many factors. But if you're simply just coming off the plane to teach English to fund your vacation, in a sense, extended vacation in a sense, then keep it light. Don't worry too much, because there's going to be some things that might frustrate you if you start to really take the job seriously. We're talking about teaching English. And you should, up to a degree. There's some people who come here and they don't take it seriously, and they party and get drunk. They come to work with hangovers. It's never happened at any job I've worked at, but I've heard people talk about it. I mean, that shouldn't be done. It's hard enough being a foreigner as it is. Don't create no static for us. I don't care what anybody says. I said what I said. Please at least have some kind of business sense.
Have some respect.
Because it does not matter. That one foreigner that does this one bad thing, and it reflects on all of us. And that does go across racial lines, even. Especially in one direction than the other. But, whatever, I'll leave that alone. So anyway, I would say that there's actually a lot more than I can say, but
it's keeping it light.
Yeah, keeping it as light as possible while still trying to be honest. I would say for the people that want to come here and they think they're going to get to be Japanese, that will never happen. And you need to make peace with that.
And I think,
and that's okay.
I think so. And I think, as Andy,
you need to realize the value of being different.
And as Andy, I think that, I have coworkers now and in the past who were foreigners. Like, both of their parents are, from America or Russia and so on. And they grew up here. They grew up in Japanese society. They're basically Japanese. They just look like a foreigner. Culturally Japanese, but their outer appearance is foreign. And they never are accepted. They're still considered a foreigner, even if they have a Japanese passport.
And this is a whole nother topic.
But yeah, so just, take it easy. Enjoy your time in Japan. We're not saying, there's good jobs and bad jobs out there.
Be professional, but don't let it stress you out. Like, both of us, we let it stress us out.
Yeah.
But this is really, stressful situations. But if you're in, just basically a eikaiwa or something like that, just take it easy, but do your job. Yeah. I actually didn't even talk about the whole bullying situation, which maybe we can find a way to incorporate that. But bullying, I didn't bully anyone, of course. I was bullied, and it was not handled well. And the person bullied other people, and they, that's a whole nother
story to talk about.
Yeah. But that's important.
Just, at the end of the day, just enjoy your time in Japan, and hopefully you find a good job, and just there's a lot of opportunities, so that's all I can say,
Yeah.
Everybody has a different story, everybody has a different experience, so you can't just take ours for face value, be like that 100%, so.
Yeah, everybody's going to be different, but there are a lot of similarities.
Yes.
And it's good for you to get information from different sources to just find out. Things are going to be slightly different sometimes based on, being brown or black or whatever, so that does factor in also.
Yep.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, that's it for today.
Yes, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.